You're born in the heart of the desert, hidden away in a cool burrow deep under the cracked, dry earth. The sun blazes above, but down here it's dark, quiet, and feels like the calm before the storm. You're not sure what's going on yet. You've just cracked through your shell. And as the dirt settles around you, the world outside seems huge, hostile, and downright terrifying. You probably don't even know what you look like yet. You don't even know if that's important. You don't have time to wonder though, because even as a hatchling, life doesn't wait for you to figure it out. You'll have to navigate a world that's all about surviving the odds. And those odds, well, let's just say they're stacked against you from the start. Welcome to life as a Gila monster. Born in the arid desert of the southwestern United States, your first lesson is simple. Stay low and stay hidden. But that's easier said than done when the sun's beating down and everything in the desert seems to want to eat you. You're a Gila monster, and let's face it, not everyone in the desert is thrilled about your existence. You're slow. You're not a sleek, fast-moving predator like some of your cousins out there. Your instinct is to hide, but hiding isn't always enough when you're this big, clunky, and brightly colored. That flashy, neon orange and black pattern you've inherited? Yeah, that's probably not helping. It's like wearing a "come eat me" sign, especially when your only real defense is a bite that's as venomous as it is inconvenient. Your mom? She's nowhere to be found. You're born into a world where parental guidance is practically a joke. Your mother laid those eggs, buried them, and walked off. No coddling, no advice, no nurturing love. You've got your instincts though, and they're telling you one thing: survive. But survival in the desert is an art, and it takes years to master it. You're hungry. That's the first thing you notice once you're free from the shell, and you're not exactly in the prime spot for a snack. The desert isn't like the lush jungles of the rainforest or the savanna. There's not a whole lot of food to go around, and what's there is probably too quick to catch or too tough to tackle. Your food choices are limited. You can munch on some insects, but you're not fast enough to chase down anything with a quick escape. No, you've got to be patient. That's the Gila monster way. You wait some more, and then you wait even longer. Once you've got that first stomach growl down, you'll probably start looking around for some of the smaller critters of the desert. Lizards, eggs, maybe a snake if you're lucky. But here's the kicker. You're not just hunting for your dinner. You're hunting for something that's not going to hunt you right back. And there's a lot of things in the desert that want to make a meal out of you. Oh, and let's not forget that your food isn't always going to come to you. You've got to go after it, which is not the easiest thing when your moves are slower than molasses. So you'll find yourself scuttling around, hoping to land on a perfect little lizard that doesn't realize it's been stalked by a slow-moving death machine with sharp teeth and a venomous bite. But here's the reality. For the first few years of your life, food is scarce, and every meal is a battle. And even when you do manage to land something, it's usually small. You'll never be able to feast like a king, just an occasional snack that keeps you alive long enough to keep moving. By the time you've grown a little bit, you've probably noticed that some of the bigger animals out there aren't too concerned with you. Your venomous bite may have been impressive to your siblings, but it doesn't impress most predators. They're not afraid of you because they've got bigger, stronger jaws and teeth of their own. You're just not that intimidating. But when you finally do get your bite in, it packs a punch, and it's toxic. It might seem like an easy fix. Just bite and release, right? You'll poison the predator, and it's game over. But here's the problem. Your venom isn't as quick as you'd like. You have to be precise, and you've got to strike just right. If you miss, your opponent's still coming after you, and now you're the one who's going to get eaten. You're at a huge disadvantage here, and that venom, while it works, isn't exactly the lifesaver you'd like it to be. It's just another tool in your toolbox, and like most tools, it doesn't work every time. So while your venom may give you a slight edge, it's not enough to turn the desert into your personal kingdom. It's a harsh, unforgiving place where every fight is a gamble. You've made it through the first few years. You've dodged predators, scraped by with scraps of food, and somehow survived the blazing desert heat. But now, you're starting to feel the weight of the world pressing down on you. Things are about to get a lot more complicated. This desert? It's not just a wasteland of sand and cactus. It's a battleground, and you're not the only one trying to make it out here. You thought you had it rough when you were a hatchling, scrambling to avoid becoming someone's lunch. But now, as you've grown, it's clear that the real challenge isn't just surviving day by day. It's about staking your claim, carving out a little corner of this barren landscape to call your own. And that's where everything starts to suck. Welcome to the ugly truth about Gila monster life. There's no room for weaklings. At first, everything seems wide open. You're cruising along thinking you've got the whole desert to yourself. You slide into your burrow for a nap, your belly full of whatever unfortunate critter you managed to catch that day, and for a moment you think, this isn't so bad. The world's your oyster, right? You're king of the sand. But, spoiler alert, the world is not your oyster. It's not even close. The truth is, the desert's packed. There's always someone else out there with the same idea, and that means you've got to fight for your spot in this brutal, sun-scorched world. The first thing you learn as you venture out and start looking for your own territory is that you're not alone. There are other Gila monsters, and they're just as determined to survive as you are. They're not just wandering around aimlessly like you were when you were younger, hoping to find a snack here and there. No. They've got their eyes on a prize, a good burrow, a stable food supply, and a place to chill without being constantly harassed by other hungry, venomous reptiles. In short, they want what you want, and they'll fight tooth and nail to get it. So now you're in the middle of what feels like a real-life game of musical chairs. Except the chairs are made of rocks and cactus, and there's not a single tune to make it less stressful. Every burrow you find, every potential nook and cranny that could become your home is already claimed by someone else. It's a turf war, and there's no negotiation, no friendly agreements. You want it, you better take it. But let's talk about what happens next. The fight. You're not the fastest, strongest, or most intimidating of creatures. Sure, you've got venom, but that doesn't mean you can just walk up to another Gila monster and zap them into submission. No. You've got to make sure you land that bite right where it counts, and even then, it's not a guarantee that they'll back down. Gila monsters aren't stupid. They know that venom's your trick. They'll back up, wait for you to strike, and if they can get close enough, they'll try to turn your trick back on you. This isn't a game where the strongest always wins, but the smartest definitely have an edge. The thing is, even if you do manage to sink your teeth into a rival, you're not built for a drawn-out fight. You're not fast. You're slow. You're a tank in a world full of fighter jets. You're not the one who's going to outmaneuver anyone. You've got to stand your ground, use your venom, and hope that your opponent gets the message before things get worse. But even if you win, it's not as sweet as it sounds. The territory you claim isn't just yours now. You're constantly at risk of someone else coming in and challenging you for it. It's a vicious cycle. You might have won today, but there's always tomorrow. And that's the real kicker. It's not about winning fights. It's about surviving them. If you can outlast your rivals and avoid getting injured too badly, then maybe, just maybe, you'll be able to hold on to that burrow for a little while longer. But don't get too comfortable. There's always someone younger, stronger, or more determined than you who's just waiting for you to slip up. And when you do, they'll pounce. Now, you've got to consider something else. The burrow itself. Sure, it's important to find a good spot to call home, but it's also got to be the right kind of burrow. You can't just settle for any old hole in the ground. This isn't about finding a comfy spot to nap in the shade. You need a burrow that will keep you cool in the blistering summer sun and warm during the freezing winter nights. It's got to be deep enough to avoid predators, but not so deep that you can't get out in a hurry if something nasty comes calling. The ideal burrow is a luxury, and you'll have to fight like hell to keep it once you've found it. You're probably thinking, okay, I'll just pick a good spot, find my corner, and settle in. Sounds simple enough, right? Think again. Let's say you've managed to carve out a nice little den in the desert. Maybe it's tucked away in the base of a sturdy cactus, or perhaps it's beneath a rock pile that offers just enough protection. You get settled in, maybe even enjoy a little peace for a while, but that peace is fragile. Other Gila monsters will show up sooner or later, and they'll sniff you out, and they won't be polite about it. Gila monsters don't knock before entering. They just come right in and start sizing you up, looking for any sign of weakness. If they're bigger than you, they'll stand tall, puff up their chests, or whatever passes for a chest in a Gila monster, and test you. If they're smaller, they might try to sneak in with their venomous bite, hoping to catch you off guard. You have a few options. You can puff up too, stand your ground, and hope they get the hint. You can show them your teeth, which to be honest isn't a lot to write home about, or you can bite them first, delivering a venomous warning shot. But don't think for a second that a bite is going to make them back off for good. Even if you're successful, it's not going to end the competition. Gila monsters are stubborn creatures. They'll stick around, constantly pushing the boundaries of your turf, waiting for you to slip. And the kicker is that these fights aren't like your typical predator-prey scuffles. There's no clear winner in most Gila monster skirmishes. The loser doesn't just walk away, it's forced into a long, slow retreat. But even then, there's no guarantee they won't be back for more. You might have won today, but tomorrow? Who knows? The desert doesn't give up its secrets easily, and the space you've carved out for yourself is never really yours. It's always a battlefield. So, what's the takeaway? If you think life is about finding peace and safety after a few years of growing up in the desert, think again. You're not just fighting to survive anymore. You're fighting to hold on to what little you've earned. And trust me, that's way harder than it sounds. Whether you're out there digging a new hole or defending an old one, every moment in the Gila monster world is a reminder that nothing comes easy. Territory isn't something you just get, it's something you have to fight for, day after day, until you're too old and too slow to fight anymore. And when that day comes, just know this, the desert doesn't care. It keeps on turning, the winds keep blowing, and the fight for territory continues, with or without you. So now you've got your territory. You've carved out a little spot in the sand, and you've claimed it as your own. But hold up, because now you've got to deal with the most awkward part of being a Gila monster, the whole mating thing. Unlike some creatures who get to impress their mates with dazzling displays of skill or strength, you've got no such luxuries. For you, it's all about surviving long enough to find someone who might find you attractive. And trust me, your chances aren't great. You're slow. You don't have flashy colors or fast moves to woo the ladies. But hey, you've got that venom, right? Maybe that'll work. So you find a mate. You try your best to court her with what little you have. She may or may not be impressed. And if you're lucky, you get to pass on your genes. But don't get too comfortable. If you're a male, there's always the chance that another, younger male might challenge you for the right to mate. So yeah, it's a competition. And you're already at a disadvantage because you're not exactly built for speed or for anything that might impress the other sex. And let's not forget that after you've mated, the fun's just beginning. Female Gila monsters lay their eggs in the safety of their burrows, burying them deep underground. They don't hang around. It's not about nurturing. It's about survival. The cycle repeats, and you're back to square one, hoping that your offspring will do better than you did. So, you've made it. You've battled through the blistering heat, dodged predators, scraped by on whatever you could catch, and somehow avoided becoming someone else's dinner. You fought for every inch of ground and defended your burrow against rivals who would have gladly eaten you alive if you'd shown the slightest sign of weakness. And now, after years of struggle, you're finally here. You've earned your place in the desert, at least for now. But here's the kicker. You're getting old. Yeah, you heard me. All that fighting, hunting, and surviving, it doesn't come without a price. Every scar on your hide, every battle you fought, every predator you've evaded, it all starts to add up. It starts slow at first. You don't notice it when you're younger, but as the years tick by, it's hard to ignore the creeping reality. You're slowing down. Maybe you've made it through 10, 15, or even 20 years. You've lived longer than most of your peers, survived longer than the odds suggested. But now, you can feel it. Your muscles, once nimble and strong, are starting to lose their edge. You've lost that sharpness you had in your prime, the ability to launch yourself into a fight with confidence and precision. The days of charging into a confrontation, biting first and asking questions later, those days are long behind you. Now you've got to think twice before getting involved in anything that even remotely smells like a scuffle. Because the truth is, you're not as tough as you used to be. Your bites don't carry the same punch anymore. Oh sure, you've still got venom. But what good is venom if you can't land the strike? What good is your bite if your target can dodge? Or worse, if the younger Gila monsters are quicker than you. It doesn't matter how many years you've lived, how many times you've survived the worst the desert can throw at you. Age doesn't wait for anyone. And the worst part, the younger generation is here. And they're hungry. They've got that youthful energy, that unbridled confidence, and they don't have the same scars you do. They're stronger, they're faster, and they don't have that experience advantage you used to rely on so much. All that wisdom you've gathered over the years, all that street smarts from surviving the harsh desert world, it doesn't matter to them. They're not impressed. To them, you're just a slow, old Gila monster trying to hang on to what little territory you have left. They want your spot, your burrow, your territory, the very place you've spent years defending. And they're not going to wait around while you try to hold on to what's yours. They're coming for you, and they won't stop until they've taken what you've worked so hard to claim. You know it. They know it. The writing's on the wall. Your first instinct is to resist. Of course it is. You fought for everything you have, and you're not about to give it up without a fight. But that's when it hits you. You're slower, and even though your mind's still sharp, your body just doesn't respond the way it used to. You try to puff up, to show them that you're still a force to be reckoned with, but the younger Gila monsters, they don't care. They're moving faster, they've got more stamina, and they've got more venom in their bite. You remember a time when you could take on any challenger that dared cross your path. You remember the confidence of your younger days, when you could sense the fear in your opponents as you approached, knowing they didn't stand a chance. But now you feel the fear too. It's not just the young ones who are fighting for their place. It's you. You're fighting to hold on to what you've earned, but every fight takes a little more out of you. And then there's the wear and tear, the old wounds, every scratch, every injury from years of survival, every bite from a rival or predator. It all starts to catch up with you. It's like the desert doesn't care how many years you've lived or how many battles you've won. It just keeps chipping away at you. You can feel it in your joints, in your bones, in the way your body moves slower, more cautiously. You're not as agile as you once were. Those quick bursts of speed that used to help you escape predators or launch surprise attacks, they're gone. Your claws, which once gripped the ground with such power, now feel sluggish, tired. Your tail, it's not as strong or flexible as it was when you were younger. The venom's still there, but now, when you strike, you wonder, will it be enough? And let's not forget the toll that time takes on your skin. The bright, bold markings you once wore proudly, they're starting to fade. The scarring from all those battles you fought for survival, once badges of honor, are now just a reminder of how long you've been at this. Your scales, which used to be so smooth, are now worn and cracked. Each imperfection a testament to the years you've spent battling the elements and every other creature trying to survive in this harsh desert world. But the worst part, you can't stop it. You can't outrun time. No matter how many tricks you've learned, no matter how many fights you've won, eventually you'll be pushed aside. Maybe you get one last fight in, a last-ditch effort to defend your burrow, your territory, your dignity. But even if you win that final battle, it doesn't matter. Your time is coming, and when it does, it's not going to be pretty. You'll lose that fight against the younger, stronger Gila monsters. Maybe it's a fight you should have never picked, but it's the only way you know how to survive, fight or die. And that's when it happens. One last blow, one last struggle, and your body gives out. You're left in the dirt, too tired to even crawl away. Maybe you get a few last moments to rest in the sun, feeling the warmth on your scales. But the desert, it doesn't care. It's seen it all before. You'll die like every other Gila monster, quietly, out of sight, far from the bustling world that once was yours. You'll die in that quiet solitude, tucked away in a burrow or under a rock, maybe with just the buzz of a distant lizard or the shrill call of a hawk overhead as your final sounds. And that's it. Game over. But here's the thing. You don't matter as much as you think. When you're gone, the world keeps spinning. The desert keeps changing. The young Gila monsters, those strong, fast, venomous creatures you once were, they'll take your place. They'll fight for their own spot, just as you did. The cycle never stops. The endless march of life, death, and survival continues. You might think you've earned the right to rest, to live out your final days in peace, but the desert, it doesn't care. It never cares. And when you fade away, your body returning to the earth, a new generation will take your place. They'll grow up just like you did, fighting, struggling, clawing for every scrap of survival. The cycle continues. The world doesn't change. The desert keeps its harsh rhythm, indifferent to the creatures that come and go. All that matters is who survives. And eventually, that will be someone else. It's a brutal, unforgiving world out there. But somehow, through it all, you made it. And that, for all its flaws, is something no one can ever take away from you. Being born as a Gila monster, it sucks. You're slow, you're not cute, you're not fast, and you don't get any help from your parents. You're thrown into a brutal world where every meal is a fight, every territory is contested, and every moment could be your last. But somehow, you make it through. You fight, you survive, and you keep going, even when the odds are stacked against you. It might not be glamorous. It might not be easy. But that's life as a Gila monster, a never-ending struggle to survive, one sluggish step at a time.